At Thanksgiving, my sister announced, "He only has money because he got lucky. He's actually an idiot." I laughed along with them. Then I pulled out my phone and removed her from my company's payroll. She realized how lucky she was when her direct deposit didn't hit. Hey, Reddit. So my sister called me a lucky idiot in front of the entire family at Thanksgiving dinner. She had no idea I was her actual boss. I just smiled, nodded, and quietly removed her from payroll right there at the table. Her direct deposit bounced 3 days later. Turns out luck had nothing to do with it. Let me back up and give you some context, because this has been building for years. I'm 32 and my sister Kelly is 28. We grew up in a pretty standard middle-class family in the suburbs. Nothing fancy, nothing terrible. Our parents were accountants who valued education and hard work. Standard stuff. They raised us to believe that if you worked hard and stayed focused, good things would happen. Solid advice in theory. The difference between Kelly and me showed up early. I was the kid who saved birthday money and mowed lawns to buy a better bike. She was the kid who spent her allowance the day she got it and then asked our parents for more. I read investing books in high school while she read celebrity gossip magazines. I worked part-time jobs throughout college while she focused on her social life and barely maintained a passing GPA. I'm not saying any of this to sound like some perfect person, because I'm definitely not. I just had different priorities. I wanted financial security. I wanted to build something. Kelly wanted to have fun and figure it out later. Neither approach is objectively wrong, but they lead to very different outcomes. After college, I started working in renewable energy consulting. Boring name, interesting work. Basically helped companies transition to solar and wind power. Handled the financial analysis and project management side of things. The industry was growing fast, and I was good at what I did. Real good. Within 3 years, I was managing major accounts and pulling in 6 figures. But here's the thing about working for someone else. There's a ceiling. You can only climb so high before you're making someone else wealthy instead of yourself. I watched my boss buy his third vacation home while giving me a 3% annual raise that barely kept up with inflation. I was generating millions in revenue for the company and seeing maybe 10% of that value reflected in my compensation. The math didn't work in my favor long term. So at 27, I took a risk that everyone in my family thought was insane. I quit my comfortable corporate job and started my own renewable energy consulting firm. My boss actually laughed when I gave notice. He told me I'd be back within a year begging for my old position. He said the industry was too competitive, and I didn't have the connections to make it work. His condescending attitude was almost as motivating as my own ambition. The first year was brutal. I worked 80-hour weeks. I ate ramen more times than I'd like to admit. I lost sleep wondering if I'd made a massive mistake. I maxed out 2 credit cards just keeping the business afloat while I built my client base. There were nights I sat at my laptop at 2 a.m., wondering if everyone who doubted me had been right. My parents were supportive but worried. They'd see me at family dinners looking exhausted and stressed, and I could tell they were second-guessing their encouragement. My dad would make comments about how there was no shame in going back to corporate work if things weren't panning out. He meant well, but it felt like he was already planning my failure. Kelly thought I was an idiot for giving up a steady paycheck. She told anyone who would listen that I was going to fail and crawl back to corporate life within 6 months. She'd make jokes at family gatherings about how I'd be applying to work for her soon. Real supportive sister energy there. At one point, about 8 months in, I had exactly $247 in my business account and a major proposal due in 2 days. I hadn't paid myself a salary in 3 months. I was living off credit cards and the remains of my savings. That was my lowest point, sitting in my apartment that I could barely afford, wondering if I should just admit defeat and start sending out resumes. But then that proposal landed. A mid-sized manufacturing company wanted to convert their facility to solar power. It wasn't a huge contract by any means, maybe $80,000 total, but it was enough to keep me going. More importantly, they referred me to 3 other companies in their industry network. Those referrals led to more referrals. Suddenly, I had momentum. Spoiler alert, I didn't fail. By year 2, I had landed 3 major contracts. By year 3, I was hiring employees and turning down work because we were at capacity. By year 5, which is where we are now, I'm running a firm with 23 employees, pulling in over $8 million annually in revenue, and personally clearing about $400,000 after expenses and salaries. I still drive the same Honda Civic I bought used 5 years ago. I live in a nice but modest house. I don't wear designer clothes or flash money around. To look at me, you'd think I was just some regular guy with a regular job, which is exactly how I like it. The people who actually matter know what I've built. Everyone else can think whatever they want. Kelly, meanwhile, has had 8 jobs in the past 6 years. She went to college for communications, which she picked because it sounded easy. She graduated with a 2.6 GPA and no real plan. Since then, she's worked in retail, restaurants, an insurance office, a gym, some marketing agency that fired her after 4 months, and a handful of other places I can't even remember. She never stays anywhere longer than a year. There's always some reason why the job isn't right for her, or why her boss is terrible, or why she deserves better. 2 years ago, Kelly showed up at my house on a Tuesday night. She was crying, said she'd just been fired from her latest job for being late too many times. She needed money for rent or she'd get evicted. She promised she'd pay me back. She swore this was the wake-up call she needed to get her life together. I gave her the money. Not as a loan. I knew I'd never see it again. But because she's my sister, and I didn't want her homeless. But I also told her that I couldn't keep bailing her out. She needed to figure out her life. She nodded, thanked me, promised she would. Then she went and bought a new iPhone the following week. Priorities. About 6 months after that, she called me asking if I had any job openings at my company. She'd been working at some retail store and hated it. She wanted something with better pay and benefits. She wanted to work in an office where she could feel professional and important. Here's where I probably should have said no. Every logical bone in my body told me this was a bad idea. Don't mix family and business. Don't hire someone with her work history. Don't do it. But she's my sister. And my mom had been dropping hints about how nice it would be if I could help Kelly out. And Kelly had actually seemed genuine about wanting to make a change. So against my better judgment, I created a position for her. I didn't give her anything crucial or important. I wasn't an idiot. I made her a client services coordinator, which is basically a fancy title for someone who answers emails, schedules meetings, handles basic administrative tasks, and keeps our client communication organized. Entry-level work that paid $42,000 a year, plus benefits. Good money for what the job required, and honestly more than she'd ever made anywhere else. I sat her down before her first day and laid out clear expectations. Show up on time. Respond to emails within 24 hours. Keep the client database updated. Be professional in all communications. Basic stuff that any competent employee should be able to handle. She nodded along, said she understood, promised she wouldn't let me down. For the first month, she was great. Showed up early, stayed late, was enthusiastic about learning. I actually started thinking I'd been wrong to doubt her. Maybe she really had turned things around. Maybe working for family would be the motivation she needed. Then month 2 hit, and the cracks started showing. She started coming in late, just 5 or 10 minutes at first, which I let slide because I'm not a hard taskmaster about that kind of thing. But then it became 15 minutes, then 30, then an hour. When I talked to her about it, she always had an excuse. Traffic was bad. Her alarm didn't go off. She wasn't feeling well. Never her fault. Always some external circumstance beyond her control. The quality of her work started slipping too. Emails went unanswered for days. Client meetings got scheduled at the wrong times. The database became a mess of outdated information and missing entries. My office manager, Patricia, came to me 3 times in 1 month about Kelly's performance. Patricia's been with me since year 1, and she doesn't complain unless something is actually a problem. One time, Kelly scheduled a critical presentation with a potential client for 2 p.m. on a Tuesday. The client flew in from Nevada specifically for this meeting. At 1:45, I got a call from our front desk saying the conference room wasn't set up and Kelly wasn't in the office. Turned out she'd gone to lunch at noon and just never came back. Didn't call, didn't text, just disappeared. I found out later she'd run into some friends at the restaurant and decided to hang out with them instead of coming back to work. She showed up at 4 p.m. like nothing had happened. I had to personally apologize to that client and reschedule their flight. We eventually got the contract, but only because I comped part of our fees to make up for the unprofessionalism. That single incident cost me about $15,000 in lost revenue and nearly destroyed a relationship with a client who could have brought us years of repeat business. When I confronted Kelly about it, she said she'd lost track of time and didn't think it was a big deal since I was there to handle the meeting anyway. Didn't think it was a big deal. A client flew across 3 states for a meeting she scheduled and then ditched, and she didn't think it was a big deal. Another time, she sent an email to a prospective client with so many typos and grammatical errors that they called me to ask if we were a legitimate company. The email literally said, "We look forward to doing business with your company." I had to explain that we were in the middle of training a new employee, and that wasn't representative of our usual standards. Meanwhile, Kelly had been working there for 4 months at that point. This wasn't a new employee mistake. This was just lazy work. I pulled Kelly aside for a conversation, not as her brother, but as her boss. I told her the late arrivals needed to stop and her work quality needed to improve. She got defensive immediately, said I was being too hard on her, said I didn't understand how stressful the job was, said Patricia was out to get her because she was jealous that Kelly was the boss's sister. That last part almost made me laugh. Patricia had zero reason to be jealous of anyone. She was my right hand, made $95,000 a year plus bonuses, and had actual equity in the company. But Kelly needed someone to blame, and Patricia was an easy target. I gave Kelly a formal written warning, documented everything, told her if things didn't improve within 30 days, we'd have to reconsider her position. She cried, promised to do better, and things improved for about 2 weeks before sliding right back to the same patterns. The thing that really got me, though, wasn't even her poor performance. It was her attitude around the office. She'd complain constantly about how hard she had to work. Meanwhile, she'd take hour-long lunches and spend half the day on her phone. She'd talk about how underpaid she was, despite making more than market rate for her position and experience level. She'd make comments about how easy I had it as the owner, like I just sat around counting money all day instead of working my tail off to keep everything running. My other employees started noticing. I'd hear them grumbling about Kelly getting special treatment because she was family. And they were right. Any other employee with her track record would have been fired months ago. But I kept giving her chances because of our relationship. It was exactly the situation I'd been warned about when I hired her. The final straw came about 3 months ago, right before Thanksgiving. A major client, a commercial real estate company looking to retrofit 5 buildings with solar panels, probably a $2 million contract over 2 years, had emailed Kelly with some questions about our proposal timeline. Simple stuff. They wanted to know when we could start, what the payment schedule would look like, and whether we could accommodate their preferred vendors for certain components. Kelly's job was to forward those questions to the appropriate people on my team, get answers, and compile a professional response. Basic coordination work. This was literally why I hired her. She never responded to the email. Just never did it. The client followed up a week later, slightly annoyed. Still no response from Kelly. They followed up again, this time directly with me, and were now seriously irritated. They were ready to walk away and take their $2 million project to a competitor. I found out because the client called me directly, which never should have happened. When I asked Kelly about it, she said she'd been busy with other tasks and forgot. Forgot about a $2 million client. Forgot to do the basic job I was paying her $42,000 a year to do. I spent 3 hours on the phone personally smoothing things over with that client, apologizing for our lack of communication, offering them a discount to make up for the inconvenience. I managed to save the contract barely, but the damage to our reputation was done. They'd remember that my company failed to respond to basic emails in a timely manner. I should have fired her right then. But Thanksgiving was 2 weeks away, and my mom had been asking if Kelly and I were both coming to dinner. She was so happy that we were working together. She kept saying how proud she was that I was helping my sister build a career. I didn't have the heart to fire Kelly right before the holidays and ruin my mom's Thanksgiving. So I decided to wait until after Thanksgiving. I'd enjoy the holiday, then have a professional conversation with Kelly the following week about how things weren't working out. I'd give her a severance package, 2 months' pay to help her transition, and wish her well. Clean, professional, generous even. Then Thanksgiving dinner happened. My whole family was there. Parents, Kelly and her boyfriend Jake, my aunt and uncle, 2 cousins. Standard holiday gathering. Mom had gone all out with the food. Turkey, stuffing, mashed potatoes, 3 kinds of pie, the works. Everyone was in good spirits, talking and laughing. After we ate, we were all sitting around the table in that post-meal days where you're too full to move but too comfortable to leave. Someone asked me how work was going. Just making conversation. I gave my standard response. Said business was good. We'd had a strong year. I was grateful for our clients and our team. Nothing fancy, just polite dinner conversation. That's when Kelly decided to chime in. Yeah, well, he got lucky. That's all it is. The table got quiet. I looked at her, figuring maybe I'd misheard or she was joking, but she had this smirk on her face, the kind you make when you think you're about to say something clever. What do you mean? My dad asked, confused. Kelly leaned back in her chair, getting comfortable for her speech. I mean, he acts like he's some brilliant businessman, but he just got lucky with timing. The renewable energy boom happened right when he started his company. He rode the wave. Anyone could have done what he did if they'd been in the right place at the right time. My uncle raised his eyebrows but didn't say anything. My mom looked uncomfortable. Kelly's boyfriend Jake was nodding along like she was dropping wisdom. I just sat there, waiting to see if she'd dig the hole deeper. She did. Honestly, if you look at it objectively, he's not even that smart about business. Kelly continued. She was on a roll now, enjoying her audience. Like, his whole strategy is just undercutting competitors on price. That's not genius. That's basic. A trained monkey could do what he does. Kelly, my mom started, but Kelly waved her off. No, it's true. Everyone acts like he's this amazing success story, but it's literally just luck. Right time, right industry, right circumstances. He works hard, sure, but so do lots of people who aren't successful. The difference is, he got lucky. She looked right at me when she said that last part, like she was daring me to disagree. My cousins were staring at their plates, clearly uncomfortable. My dad looked like he wanted to say something but wasn't sure what. My aunt was giving Kelly the kind of look you give someone who just insulted the host. But I didn't get mad. I didn't defend myself. I didn't argue. I just smiled and nodded. You might be right, I said calmly. Luck definitely played a role. Kelly looked almost disappointed that I wasn't taking the bait. She'd clearly wanted a fight, wanted me to get defensive so she could prove her point about how I take myself too seriously, or whatever narrative she'd built in her head. Exactly, she said, vindicated. People need to stop acting like he's special. He just got lucky. That's the truth. Well, my uncle said, clearly trying to change the subject. Lucky or not, it's working out well for him. For now, Kelly added. But luck runs out eventually. Then we'll see how successful he really is. My mom suggested we move to the living room for pie. Everyone jumped at the chance to escape the awkward conversation. As people got up from the table, I pulled out my phone like I was just checking messages. I opened my company's HR management app. We use a system that lets me handle payroll, benefits, scheduling, all that stuff remotely. Very convenient, especially in moments like this. I navigated to Kelly's employee profile, clicked on the employment status dropdown, changed it from active to terminated, entered today's date as the end date, added a note in the termination reason field, performance issues and violation of company conduct policy. The app asked me to confirm the termination. I clicked yes. It asked if I wanted to process any final payments or severance. I clicked no. She'd get her final paycheck for hours worked. But that's it. No severance package. No 2 months pay. Nothing. The whole process took maybe 90 seconds. By the time I walked into the living room for pie, Kelly was officially no longer employed by my company. Her access to our systems had been automatically revoked. Her next direct deposit, scheduled for the following Friday, had been canceled. I sat down with my slice of pumpkin pie and listened to Kelly continue talking about how overrated I was. She'd moved on to criticizing my house, saying it was too small for someone who made as much money as I supposedly did. Clearly, I was either lying about my income or too stupid to know how to spend money properly. One or the other. I just nodded and ate my pie. I didn't say a word about what I'd just done. Why would I? She'd find out soon enough. The rest of Thanksgiving was fine. Kelly eventually moved on to other topics. We watched football. My dad fell asleep in his recliner. Standard holiday stuff. When Kelly left that evening, she hugged mom and dad, said bye to everyone. She didn't even look at me. I went home that night and slept better than I had in months. No guilt. No second guessing. Just relief that I'd finally made the decision I should have made months ago. Friday morning, I got to the office early. Patricia was already there. She always is. I called her into my office and told her that Kelly was no longer with the company. Patricia's face showed relief mixed with concern. She asked if I was okay. I told her I was fine, that it was overdue, and that we'd need to redistribute Kelly's responsibilities until we hired a replacement. Patricia nodded. I'll handle it. And for what it's worth, you made the right call. She wasn't a good fit here. I know, I said. I should have done it sooner. We sent out a brief email to the team that morning. Kelly Turner was no longer with the company, effective immediately. Her responsibilities had been redistributed. All clients should be directed to Patricia for coordination needs until further notice. Professional and to the point, a few employees came by my office throughout the day. Nobody asked what happened. They all knew. They'd watched Kelly coast for months while they did actual work. A couple people even thanked me for finally addressing it. That stung a bit, knowing my team had been frustrated for that long, while I'd let family loyalty cloud my judgment. The day Kelly's direct deposit should have hit was the following Friday. About 2 p.m., my phone started blowing up. First text from Kelly. Hey, my paycheck didn't deposit. Can you check with payroll? I didn't respond. I was in a meeting with a client. Second text, 10 minutes later. Seriously, where's my paycheck? This is ridiculous. Third text, 5 minutes after that. I need that money today. I have bills to pay. Fix this now. Then she called. I declined it. She called again, declined again. Then my office phone rang. Patricia picked it up, listened for a minute, then walked into my office. Kelly's online too, Patricia said, clearly trying not to smile. She's very upset about her paycheck. Tell her to check her email, I said. She should have received a termination notification last week. Patricia went back to her desk. I heard her relay that message. Then I heard Kelly's voice get loud enough that I could make out words through Patricia's phone. Patricia said something else, then hung up. She says she never got any email, Patricia reported, and she's demanding to speak with you. Did you verify that the termination email was sent? I asked. Patricia checked her computer. Sent Friday at 8 a.m. to her company email. She probably hasn't checked it since Thanksgiving. Of course she hadn't. Kelly treated checking her work email like it was optional. Another reason she'd been terrible at her job. If she calls back, tell her to check her company email for all relevant information regarding her termination, I said. And if she continues to harass our office line, we'll need to block her number. Kelly did call back. 3 times. Patricia gave her the same message each time and eventually did block her number. Then Kelly started texting me personally. The messages were progressively more angry. You fired me! Are you kidding me right now? You can't just fire me without warning. That's illegal. Mom is going to hear about this. Dad, too. You're going to regret this. I can't believe you do this to your own sister. You're a terrible person. This is because I told the truth about you at Thanksgiving, isn't it? You're that petty? You owe me that paycheck. I worked for that money. I responded to exactly one text. You received your final paycheck for all hours worked up to your termination date on November 25th. Any questions about your termination should be directed to HR. Then I muted the conversation. She tried calling my personal phone. I didn't answer. She called my office directly. Patricia blocked her. She even showed up at my office on Monday morning, but our building has security, and you need a key card to get past the lobby. Security called me to ask if I was expecting Kelly Turner. I said no, she was no longer employed here, and they should ask her to leave. They did. The real fireworks started when she called my parents. My mom called me that Monday evening, right as I was leaving the office. She sounded upset. What's this about you firing Kelly? She asked. No, hello. No, how are you? Straight to the accusation. It's true, I said. I terminated her employment last Friday. Without even talking to her first? Without any warning? She had multiple warnings, Mom. Written documentation, performance improvement plans. I'd been trying to work with her for months. She chose not to improve. But she's your sister. And she was my employee, a bad employee. I gave her more chances than I would have given anyone else specifically because she's my sister. But I can't run a business on family sentiment. My mom was quiet for a moment. Then she said, Kelly says you fired her because she said you got lucky at Thanksgiving. She thinks you're just being petty and vindictive. I actually laughed at that. Mom, I fired her because she was bad at her job. She consistently showed up late, ignored client emails, created problems for my team, and cost me a major contract because she couldn't be bothered to do basic tasks. The Thanksgiving comment had nothing to do with it. She says you did it on your phone right there at dinner. I processed her termination on Thanksgiving, yes, but the decision was made weeks ago. I was planning to fire her that following Monday anyway. Her little speech just moved up the timeline. You should have talked to her first, given her another chance. I gave her 6 months of chances, Mom. How many more did you want me to give her? My mom sighed. She's really struggling now. She doesn't have a job. She's behind on rent. She needs help. Then she should have thought about that before she decided to coast at the one job where someone actually gave her a real opportunity. She's family, and I'm not her personal ATM, I said, more firmly than I usually spoke to my mom. I helped her by giving her a good job with good pay. She threw that away. Those are consequences of her own choices. My mom didn't like that answer. She tried the guilt trip approach, talking about how Kelly was my little sister and how I should want to help her. I listened politely and then told her I had to go. She wasn't happy, but she let me off the phone. My dad called the next day. He was more direct about it. You need to give Kelly her job back, he said. No preamble. No, I don't, I replied. She's your sister. You can't just abandon her like this. I'm not abandoning her. I'm holding her accountable for her work performance. There's a difference. She made one comment at Thanksgiving and you ruined her life over it. Dad, I kept detailed records of every performance issue, every late arrival, every missed deadline, every client complaint. This has nothing to do with Thanksgiving and everything to do with 6 months of documented poor performance. Ask her about the 2 million client she almost lost us because she couldn't be bothered to respond to an email. My dad went quiet. What client? I explained the situation. How Kelly had ignored multiple emails from a major client. how I'd had to personally intervene to save the contract, how that was just one example of many issues. She never mentioned that, my dad said slowly. Of course she didn't, because that would require her to take responsibility for her actions instead of blaming everyone else. My dad was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Your mother is very upset about this. I'm sorry she's upset, but I made the right business decision. Kelly was a liability to my company. I couldn't keep her on staff just because we share DNA. Family is supposed to support each other. I did support her, Dad. I gave her a job she wasn't qualified for. I paid her more than market rate. I gave her chance after chance to improve. At some point, support becomes enabling. I'm not going to enable her to coast through life expecting other people to carry her." My dad didn't have much to say to that. He told me to think about what I was doing and hung up. Kelly tried a few more times to get me to rehire her, or at least give her severance money. She sent long text messages about how unfair I was being, how I'd never understood her, how everyone always expected her to be like me and she couldn't live up to that, how I was successful because I'd had advantages she didn't have. I didn't respond to any of it. There was nothing to say. She'd built this narrative where she was the victim and I was the villain, and nothing I said would change that. People believe what they want to believe. About 2 weeks after I fired her, my mom called again. She sounded tired. "I just want you to know that your father and I loaned Kelly money for her rent," she said. "She's looking for a new job, but it's taking time." "Okay," I said. "We're disappointed in how you've handled this situation." "That's your right, Mom, but I stand by my decision. She's your sister. You should have helped her." "I did help her. For 6 months I helped her. She chose not to help herself." My mom sighed. "I don't think you understand how hard things are for her right now." "I understand perfectly well. I also understand that she created this situation for herself. I'm sorry she's struggling, but those are natural consequences of her choices." "You've become very hard," my mom said quietly. "No, Mom. I've just learned that helping people who don't want to help themselves doesn't actually help them. It just enables them to keep making bad choices." We didn't talk for a while after that call. My parents were upset with me. Kelly was telling everyone who would listen that I'd betrayed her. My aunt apparently thought I was being too harsh. My uncle thought I'd done the right thing but wasn't going to say so publicly because he didn't want to deal with my mom's reaction. But you know what? My business ran better without Kelly there. Patricia hired a replacement within 3 weeks, a recent college grad named Rachel, who actually showed up on time, responded to emails, and treated her job with respect. Client communications improved. My team morale improved. Everything just worked better. About a month after all this went down, I got a text from Kelly. It was different from her previous angry messages. "I got a new job. Starts Monday. Just wanted you to know I'm fine." I texted back, "Glad to hear it. Good luck with the new position." She didn't respond. I didn't expect her to. That was probably the last direct communication we'd have for a while. Maybe forever. Some bridges burn and stay burned. My parents slowly started talking to me again, though things were definitely strained. Mom would call occasionally and we'd have surface-level conversations about neutral topics. Dad sent me an article about a solar project he'd read about. Small gestures toward normalcy, but the underlying tension was still there. They'd made it clear they thought I was wrong. I'd made it clear I didn't care. Christmas was awkward as hell. We all showed up at my parents' house because that's what you do. Kelly was there with Jake. We didn't speak directly to each other. She spent the whole time on her phone or talking to Jake in hushed voices. I hung out with my cousins and avoided the living room where Kelly had stationed herself. At one point, my dad tried to manufacture a conversation between us. He literally said, "Why don't you two talk and work this out?" Like we were toddlers fighting over a toy. Kelly looked at me with cold eyes. I looked back with equal indifference. Neither of us said anything. My dad gave up and went back to watching football. Right after New Year's, things got interesting. Kelly apparently told Jake her whole version of the story. How I'd fired her out of jealousy and spite, how I couldn't handle her telling the truth about my success, how I was a terrible person who abandoned family. Jake, being the brilliant mind he is, decided to help her get revenge. He created a fake Google review for my company. 1 star. Claimed we'd scammed his business out of $50,000 and never delivered on our promises. Said we were frauds running a sham operation. He even made up a fake business name to make it look legitimate. The problem with Jake's plan was that I have Google Alerts set up for my company name. I saw the review within an hour of it being posted. I also saw that the account that posted it was created that same day and had only posted that one review. Not exactly a sophisticated operation. I took screenshots, documented everything, and flagged it to Google as a fraudulent review. It was removed within 48 hours. Then I had my attorney send Jake a cease and desist letter for defamation and attempted damage to my business reputation. The letter mentioned potential legal action if he continued. Kelly called me 2 days later, screaming about how I was threatening to sue her boyfriend. I told her calmly that if her boyfriend wanted to commit actionable defamation, he should be prepared for the consequences. Then I hung up. Jake apparently backed off after that. No more fake reviews. No more attempts at revenge. Turns out when you threaten people with actual legal consequences, they tend to reconsider their actions. In February, my mom called with news. Kelly had been evicted from her apartment. She'd been staying with Jake, but that relationship had imploded after the legal threat. Now she was asking if she could move back in with our parents. My mom asked if I would reconsider hiring Kelly back. I said no. She asked if I would at least loan Kelly money for a deposit. I said no, again. She said I was being cruel. I reminded her that Kelly had burned through every opportunity, insulted me publicly, and had her boyfriend try to sabotage my business. At what point was Kelly responsible for her own situation? My mom didn't have an answer. Kelly moved back home at 28 years old. March brought the real satisfaction, though. Remember that major client Kelly almost lost us because she ignored their emails? The $2 million contract I'd barely saved? They came back with an expansion proposal. They were so happy with our work on their initial 5 buildings that they wanted us to handle 12 more properties. This contract was going to be worth about $5 million over 3 years. During the contract signing meeting, the client's VP actually mentioned how impressed they were with our communication improvements over the past few months. He specifically praised our new client services coordinator for being responsive and professional, said it was night and day compared to their initial experience with us. I thanked him and explained we'd made some personnel changes to better serve our clients. He nodded approvingly and said it showed. That contract put us on track to break $12 million in revenue for the year. We were growing faster than I'd projected. I hired 3 more employees, including a second project manager to handle the increased workload. Business was booming. I found out through my mom that Kelly was working at a department store again, making minimum wage plus commission. She was still living at home, still complaining about how unfair life was, still blaming everyone but herself. My parents stopped asking me to help her. I think they finally realized that no amount of money or opportunities would fix Kelly's fundamental problem. She didn't want to do the work. In April, I got a message on LinkedIn from someone who'd worked with Kelly before. He said Kelly was telling people she'd left my company because I was running it unethically. She was claiming she quit on principle, not that she'd been fired. I posted a professional update on LinkedIn about our company's expansion and the importance of maintaining high standards. I didn't mention Kelly by name, but anyone who knew the situation understood. 2 former colleagues reached out after that post. Both said they'd heard rumors from Kelly and were glad to see we were actually thriving. Her attempts to damage my reputation had completely backfired. People in the industry talk, and when they saw my company's actual success, it just made her look bitter and unreliable. By summer, things had settled into a new normal. My company hit 30 employees and over $15 million in projected annual revenue. We moved into a bigger office. I finally gave myself a raise and bought a newer car. Still a Honda, just a less beat-up one. My parents and I had reached a peaceful detente. We talked occasionally about neutral topics. They'd stopped defending Kelly's behavior, mostly because even they couldn't ignore the pattern anymore. My dad actually apologized to me in June, said he understood why I'd made the decision I made. That meant more than he probably realized. Kelly was still living at home, still bouncing between jobs. Last I heard, she'd gotten fired from the department store for being late too many times. She'd moved on to working at a call center. My mom stopped giving me updates unless I specifically asked. In August, I ran into Jake at a gas station. We made eye contact. He looked away immediately and hurried to his car. I just smiled and went about my day. Some battles win themselves. Win. The best part came in September. We won a major industry award for innovative renewable energy consulting. There was a ceremony, a trophy, a write-up in several trade publications. My team was thrilled. Patricia cried happy tears. It was a huge validation of everything we'd built. The awards ceremony was on a Thursday evening. The write-up was published Friday morning. By Friday afternoon, my phone was blowing up with congratulatory messages from colleagues, former coworkers, even some family members. My mom called that evening. She'd seen the article. She said she was proud of me. Then she said something that actually surprised me. Kelly saw the article too. She didn't say anything, but I could see it on her face. I think she finally understands what she gave up. I didn't respond to that. There wasn't anything to say. Kelly had made her choices. I'd made mine. The results spoke for themselves. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks.